All right, so we are 2 minutes past the top of the hour, so let's go ahead and get started. So, hello everyone. Right off the bat, I just want to thank everyone for coming together on today's Stronger Together webinar. My name is Chad Barker. I'm the CEO of Velox Valuations. But more importantly, for today's conversation, I'm also a certified appraiser. And before we talk about Velox valuations and franchising and everything else we have in store today, I want to start things off and kind of set the stage with a quick story about my background. So, I got started in the appraisal profession back in 1996, right here in Indianapolis, Indiana. I had just graduated from Indiana University's Kelley School of Business with degrees in finance and economics. And, like so many people entering this profession at the time, I didn't have some grand plan to become an appraiser. In fact, I knew very little about the industry. So a friend of mine introduced me to a local appraisal company that was just getting started, and I was invited to come in for an interview. So I showed up, about 15 minutes early, of course, and I asked for the person I was supposed to meet. And someone in the office there said he wasn't there, but that his brother David, he was standing right there, and his brother happened to also be an appraiser, and he said, listen, I'm headed out to an inspection right now. You want to hop in the truck? And that was the start of my interview, right? If you want to call it that. My first interview in this profession happened sitting in the passenger seat of a pickup truck on the way to an appraisal inspection. So, we went and did the inspection, and along the way, we talked about, houses and valuation and customer needs and what they were trying to do with this business they were getting off the ground. And by the time we got back to the office, David just looked at me and said, "So am I going to see you tomorrow?" And we never talked about money or expectations or anything like that. That of course came later, but I just looked at him and I said, "Yeah, I guess I'll see you in the morning." And that was it, right? That was the start of my appraisal career. And over the next 10 years, I moved from trainee to certified appraiser, of course. I had great mentors. I learned the craft. I worked in the field every day, full time, boots on ground, as they say. I became a high producing appraiser. I was focused on efficiency. I brought in customers. I developed relationships with those customers, and those customers trusted me to help them make important decisions involving real estate. I really loved it. But eventually, something else started happening. The entrepreneurial side of me became increasingly interested in how the business itself worked. So I became more involved in operations, more involved in sales, and the overall growth of that business. At the same time, this is when the industry was changing. It was about the time of internet lending really coming of age. So, the internet was changing everything, right? Local lenders were becoming regional lenders, regionals becoming nationals. And so our customers began asking us to serve markets well beyond our local geography. And like many firms during that period, we evolved from simply providing appraisals into managing appraisal fulfillment and scaling that, which is the AMC model, right? Appraisal fulfillment or appraisal services. And eventually that company became one of the largest of its kind in the country. And that journey led through multiple acquisitions. We had private equity ownership at one point, but ultimately we ended up in a Fortune 500, publicly held company. And there were just countless learning opportunities throughout that journey. But the point I'm getting to is that along the way, I found myself moving through many of the roles our residential appraisal profession offers. Certainly not all of them, but many. I was a trainee, I was a staff appraiser, I became a highly producing staff appraiser. That's a different category in and of itself, in my opinion. I became an operator, I became a salesperson, and yes, I became an entrepreneur. And today I lead Velox Valuations, the appraisal firm. We are not an AMC. The reason I tell you that story is because today's conversation is really about all of those paths. Because a majority of appraisers in our industry, and I'm sure on this call, find themselves somewhere on that journey. Some are trainees, some are building careers, some are looking for stability, Some are looking for growth. And yeah, some are nearing retirement, right? Probably too many of us. Some want to build businesses. So the question is, how do we create an operation where all of those people can succeed today and succeed together? And that is the focus of today's webinar. All right, so let's briefly look at today's agenda. In terms of introductions, right, we just kind of went through my background. And later on, we'll continue with the introductions as you'll hear from 5 of our current franchise owners. You see them on the screen. We have owners that are appraisers, non-appraisers, former employees, and partnerships. So more to come on that. Now, I know we have a lot of appraisers joining today, and we're going to jump right into why are we doing this, right? Why franchising and how that creates opportunities for all appraisers. And also on the webinar today, we have potential and certainly existing Velox customers. So we're going to get into the Velox brand and our value proposition, why customers care about what Velox is doing. Then we'll look deeper into the franchise opportunity and the systems and support it provides both owners and all Velox appraisers. And after that, we'll hear directly from several of the current franchise owners, what their stories are, experiences, and some feedback about the process. And then finally, we're going to take your questions, right? Any and all that you have. And don't worry, this isn't going to be a marathon, I promise. We're going to get through everything in about an hour or maybe slightly longer, depending on your questions. That said, we have no time limit, so we'll get every question answered to the best of our ability. So let's get started. All right, so the overarching questions: why are we doing this? Why scale an appraisal firm? And why specifically franchising, and why now? Well, because we believe our industry has a fundamental problem. And interestingly enough, it's no longer a lack of technology. There's plenty of technology solutions out there. It's certainly not a lack of regulation. We have plenty of that as well. It's not lacking access to data. It's not even valuation methodology. Even UAD 3.6 doesn't change that. 3.6 is all about process. So when you strip everything away, we believe the greatest challenge facing appraisers today is fragmentation. Our profession, the appraiser population or community, if you will, it simply lacks structure. It lacks cohesiveness and it lacks leverage. So think about it. There are tens and tens of thousands of highly capable appraisers operating across the country. Most of them are exceptional at what they do. But instead of that manifesting into hundreds or even a few thousand valuable company structures, it remains heavily fragmented with tens and tens of thousands of very small independent businesses. That means thousands of separate marketing budgets and marketing efforts. It means thousands of separate independent, often unsupported learning paths and decisions. Thousands of separate service offerings attempting to build customer relationships with the same set of customers, when in reality, those service offerings are so far overlapping that the customers become numb to them, right? Quality, speed, communication. Meanwhile, the rest of the industry, it has been consolidating. Lenders have been consolidating for years. That's an ongoing endeavor. Technology companies are consolidating. And of course, we appraisers know that AMCs have been consolidated. And candidly, in the appraisal space, it's the AMCs that have done a good job building scale. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not, and that is not, an anti-AMC statement. Many of our best customers today are AMCs. In fact, many of our AMC partners have helped us grow as we expand in areas where they have a need for more consistent services. But while AMCs were building scale and leverage, the supplier side of that equation, the appraisers themselves, have been content to largely remain fragmented. And that fragmentation creates real problems. First, it creates a service leverage problem. Another way of saying that would be a service offering problem. An individual appraiser may be excellent, but one appraiser only covers one geographic market. One small company may be excellent, but 2 or 3 people can only serve so many customers. And if an appraisal report offered in a small geographic area is all a business has to offer, how can that be meaningful to customers seeking services regionally or nationally? Be that an AMC, a direct lender, an attorney, a consumer, or otherwise. Second, it creates a marketing problem. Like I just said, standing out in today's appraisal industry, it has to transcend the local market. It requires being part of an operation that has a meaningful value proposition that is marketable in the first place. And to accomplish that requires time, money, and expertise in branding and business development. These are resources that most, not all, but most independent appraisers, they simply don't have. I mean, how can we expect tens and tens of thousands of small appraisal companies to be experts at marketing, or to be experts at every function of a business for that matter? And then third, it creates a growth and scaling problem. Most appraisal businesses eventually hit a ceiling. At some point, growth becomes limited by the owner's personal capacity. When the opportunity exists to scale, building the infrastructure and scaling beyond a 1 or 2 person operation can be extremely difficult when you're starting from scratch. And I'm not talking about an appraiser, handing off their overflow work to appear in the market for a finder's fee. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's no real equity in that. I'm talking about building an appraisal firm, building a company, a business entity. So, I mean, listen, you don't have to look far to see how other industries have evolved. Real estate agents are the most obvious and proximate. Look at Remax, Keller Williams, Coldwell Banker, Century 21. Ever heard of those brands and those companies? There's mortgage brokers, property restoration companies like ServPro, attorneys, home inspectors like Pillar to Post and Win Home Inspection. There's financial advisors, tax preparation services. Ever heard of H&R Block or Jackson Hewitt? The list goes on, and the professionals in these industries, they all have access to national brands, scalable systems, and proven business models. But residential appraisers, we have historically just kept operating as small businesses in our silos, so to speak, trying to compete with each other with no real market backing, no cohesiveness, just sitting out on islands. And that's what I mean by a lack of structure and fragmentation as the problem. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand the desire for freedom and flexibility in being able to provide appraisal services. And I'm not suggesting that goes away, just the opposite. I'm suggesting that we scale from there. What if we just simply brought appraisers together, right? Not by taking something away, not by replacing them, not by creating more distance between them and customers and the intended users, not by micromanaging them and dictation, but by just simply creating more opportunity by working together. More opportunity for each of those career buckets: trainees, staff appraisers, highly producing staff appraisers, highly accredited appraisers, appraisers near the end of their careers, and yes, the entrepreneurs in our community. Which, by the way, I believe in every industry. It's the entrepreneurs that do the most to create opportunity. So coming together through a shared identity with mutual support, more leverage, more scale, certainly more marketing power. We'll talk more about that, and more equity creation. Because ultimately, we believe the solution is straightforward. You know how they say, it's so simple, right? If fragmentation is the problem, collaboration is the solution. That's the premise behind Velox Valuations. So when asking why franchising, the answer is because it is a powerful way to bring appraisers together, to work together under a shared identity where we can create a better service offering together, and we can leverage support and services. More simply put, it's a mechanism to create a brand for appraisers. So let's break that down. Number one, we call Velox a brand for appraisers. There are a number of recognized residential appraisal brands out there in the appraisal space. But if you start naming them off almost exclusively, they're AMCs. Like I said, they've done a great job scaling and consolidating appraisal management services. Like I also said, once upon a time, I helped build and scale a great AMC, in my opinion. In fact, because of that background, and for our AMC partners on the webinar today, Velox excels at providing services to our AMC customers. We can operate like their staff appraiser department down the hall. It's just a fact that some lenders will always want to outsource their appraisal fulfillment, their appraisal management functions, and AMCs are there to fill that need. And then there's Velox, the appraisers firm. We're there to help fill those orders with appraisals, with great customer service, quality, and consistency. So getting back to the brand, the point I'm leading to is that the AMC's brand represents the AMC's service, appraisal management services. So when an AMC spends a marketing dollar, they're doing it to market their service, not necessarily the appraiser directly. Velox, on the other hand, our brand markets the appraiser directly. This company provides one service, and that is the appraisal itself, delivered directly by the appraiser. We're going to talk more about that. And the brand represents that service. So when we spend a marketing dollar, it is for our appraiser employees and franchisees. We're promoting the professionals actually performing the valuation work. The beneficiary of the brand is the appraiser. And every new appraiser, every new franchisee, every new market, and every new customer makes the brand stronger for everyone else. That's called synergy. So number 2 on the slide is a promise to customers. So listen, every good brand, it must establish an expectation from its customers. McDonald's, it's the same burger and experience at every location, right? The same trans fats. Car brands sell image and performance, right? Google, it's a brand and it was established so well that it became a verb because it was expected to be the best place to acquire information. You need some information, just Google it. The point is the brand becomes a representation of a service experience, and our brand has achieved this with our clients. Everyone in appraising can advertise quality reports and reliable turn times. Velox does too. But we have proven it to our customers. And because they've come to expect it, when we bring on new appraisers and new markets, our customers are generally there to use our services. Is it because our appraisers and franchisees are perfect every time? Of course not. But our customers know Velox as a brand. They know how we operate. They know how we execute, how we recruit, our culture, our relationship with our employee appraisers, and what's expected of them to maintain employment. Make a promise, keep a promise, right? And that has power and it creates opportunity. And the third pillar relates to the brand graphic itself. So we tell the story about the brand image. Velox, it's a Latin word. It means fast or rapid, which is of course a desirable service experience, for our lending customers. And there's also a type of hawk that's called a Velox. It's a subspecies of the sharp-shinned hawk, and it's known for being agile. You see, most hawks, they hunt out in wide open spaces, but the Velox, it hunts in the woods. And therefore it has to be agile and it has to be swift to navigate a difficult landscape. I would argue, just like appraisers have to do. Anyway, that's why you see the bird in our logo, and that's the story. And finally, number 4, like I've already touched on, the Velox the brand serves to proliferate the appraiser's identity. Our customers engage our team directly. There is no firewall. The customer works with the subject matter expert, a subject matter expert that is then supported by the full resources of Velox Valuations. And our tagline, "We value America," it's not just marketing. For us, it's a statement of purpose. We in that statement, that's us. That's the appraisers. We literally value American real estate. All right, so this slide represents our value proposition. So, for those of you in attendance, that may represent a lender, an AMC, an attorney group, or an investor, or even a consumer. This is for you as much as it is for the appraisers to understand Velox valuations. We are all about direct relationships with appraisers. Velox's relationship with the appraiser on one hand, and Velox's customers' direct relationship with the appraiser on the other hand. So 100% of our appraisers are full-time W-2 employees of Velox Valuations or its franchisees. That means that every owner and every team member is exclusively dedicated to the brand and what it delivers. We don't have appraisers that work for Velox part-time or some of the time and then provide their own services the rest of the time. We want appraisers that are dedicated to what this firm does and dedicated to its customers, because we believe in putting that appraiser at the front of the transaction. Again, there is no firewall, whether that's with an AMC, a lender, a consumer, any customer of appraisal services. We don't have an order intake desk, and then we decide which appraiser gets that assignment and push it out and place and chase. Orders go directly from the customer to the appraiser end to end. But while our appraisers handle assignments end to end, they're not out on an island like so many independent appraisers. They have the full support structure of the Velox appraisal firm. That includes franchise owners, regional managers, and corporate leadership who can step in when needed. They have an internal peer network to tap into. They have best practices training. They have reporting and business intelligence tools. They have a chief appraiser to lean on, et cetera, et cetera. So next, it's about recruiting top talent and being performance focused. It all starts with surrounding ourselves with great people. And Velox is built on attracting and retaining top talent. We always say quality, it starts with the hiring decision. Our compensation model, it's flexible, and it's customizable to appraisers and their individual circumstances. So it allows us to recruit the best appraisers in the industry. We don't hire just for orders. We hire for career paths. And because we believe in flexibility for the appraiser, it allows us to build relationships with appraisers at any stage in their career. From any one of those career path buckets I mentioned. We have appraisers that have been on our team for over 10 years. That's on one end. And we've employed, many trainees through to their certification on the other end. That doesn't happen by accident. It's that kind of relationship and culture that comes through in the customer experience as well. And then, of course, there's the national reach. And you already know by now that an appraisal firm's reach is the new differentiator. All of these other items, they're great, but they become even more meaningful when you can offer them consistently and at scale. Operating in one or two markets, it's just simply stopped short. And our appraiser direct employee franchise model, it's already offering a national reach. We're in 28 states and growing. We have customers that order assignments regionally, nationally, and we give those customers a solution that provides that same level of service across all of those markets. That's brand power. Think about it. As a Velox franchise owner versus a small unknown shop, your entire value proposition changes. You go from saying, hi, I'm Chad Barker, the appraiser. I can deliver reports to you in these 3 Texas counties. It goes from that to, hi, I'm Chad Barker. I'm the owner and operator of the appraisal firm Velox Valuations in Dallas. We have 6 certified employee appraisers servicing the greater Dallas area. And Velox Valuations as an organization also has offices in Houston, San Antonio, Austin, and 27 other states. We all provide the same or similar service experience backed by the full resources of the Velox Valuations organization. We're already doing UAD 3.6 assignments. We are 3.6 ready. We do all sorts of hybrid assignments, non-QM, non-lending work. And that's the type of message that you can now say. That's an entirely different offering. That's leveraging service. All right, so let's take a quick look at a hit list of what the franchise offers. and then take a peek at some of those systems and support. So first there's Velox Valuations. We value America. It's an established brand and it's growing. The operations, it's a scalable model. Our systems and value proposition are rooted in scalability, and it's what we've been evolving for years. It's access to all our national customers. We set up our franchisees and their employees and all employees of the organization with all of our national customers. Now, it's not contractual volume, and frankly, it shouldn't be. These are client relationships that we've developed and earned over time as a team, as an appraisal firm, as a brand of appraisers working together and providing consistent service. It's best practice in use of innovative technology. Now, we're not a technology company, but we have, custom internal systems, and we curate the best technology in the market available to appraisers, and we outline their use through our overall best practices. It's expert support. We've talked about that. And finally, it's ownership and equity growth. One of the biggest differentiators of the franchise model is the ability to build equity. Independent appraisers often have very good earnings, but their businesses don't always translate into a sellable asset. What's more value? What has more value? Chad Barker's Burgers or a McDonald's or Five Guys store that Chad Barker owns, right? Equity in franchising and brand value is real. And the franchisee, they own their business, right? So let's talk about that a little bit deeper. When purchasing a franchise, you're purchasing the brand power, leadership guidance, and the systems and support to help you make that business a success, right? Well, we have comprehensive, well-developed systems that have been tested, refined, and actively used at a corporate level for years before being adapted for our franchise businesses. And those systems are still evolving. We didn't start out as a franchisor. We started out, and still are, an appraisal firm. We began franchising to improve our ability to bring appraisers together. And we're going to hear from several of them here in just a few minutes. We're getting close. Because, listen, I'm not going to go through each item on this slide one by one, but I think it's important to help everybody understand the comprehensive support that's offered. And you can get a glimpse of that on the slide yourself. When we say systems and support, we're talking about the entire operational framework needed to run a successful appraisal firm. This includes everything from business infrastructure and operations to marketing and networking support. From setting up profiles with major lenders and AMCs to detailed operating manuals, ordering systems, and financial tracking, public relations, website landing pages, social media posts, sales materials, and more, right? We provide back office support and operational structure that allows franchisees more time to focus on the actual work of appraising and, just as importantly, promoting and growing their business, not on figuring out how to run a business from scratch or solving business problems alone that have already been solved, or anything else not currently part of their core competency. So the items you see here aren't just ideas. Like I said, they are the same systems and strategies that we've used at the corporate level to build and maintain a strong business presence. And as franchisees, you get access and training to all of it. And support doesn't stop after you've entered the franchise relationship, gone through the training and you've opened your Velox doors. It continues every single day through our technology processes, through the business intelligence that we have, the professional development. These are the tools that ensure that our franchise partners are always improving. They're staying informed and they're always supported. Velox provides franchisees with a system of record for all their transactions, data analytics on top of that to help manage their business, the operating workflow automation on the back end to create operating efficiencies. Again, I'm not going to go through all of these in detail, but I know it's important to see it. You can see the support in technology, pricing models, peer groups, training programs, The UAD 3.6 training that we developed for our internal folks and all of our employees, it's a great example of that. We have appraisers, again, like I said, doing 3.6 assignments now on a weekly basis. So our team is already building, 3.6 subject matter experts. We do things like we support our franchisees in recruiting. So we offer services to help you actually recruit and build your staff. We don't just hand over a playbook, with our franchisees and say, good luck, right? We assist them in using the systems and processes that have made Velox Valuations a successful firm. So we are bringing appraisers together. We are serving customers together. Now we can show our appraiser franchise owners the way, and we do, but they have to do it, right? They have to execute and drive their business to success. And I am happy to report they are doing it, right? We already have 17 franchise owners that collectively own 19 territories. And that's on top of the 43 corporate owned locations. And in the bigger scheme of things, we are just getting started. There are tons of opportunity in our existing footprint for employees, for entrepreneurs, and franchising, and certainly to grow in lockstep with our customers. All right, so the time has come. Let's meet some of our franchise owners. One of the themes we keep going back to today is that there isn't just one journey in the appraisal profession, right? Some people are entering the industry, some are building careers, growing teams, some are experienced operators that are looking to scale, and some are entrepreneurs looking to build something. So let's hear from some of those entrepreneurs. Listen, we'll start with Jason Covington, owner of the Velox Valuations Nashville. Jason, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll have a question for you.
Good afternoon. Hello. Yes, I am Jason Covington, and I'm a certified residential appraiser in Nashville, Tennessee. And I have a unique story with the Velox system because I've experienced the organization from two different perspectives. I started as a Velox employee appraiser before eventually becoming now a franchise owner. So I've literally lived on both sides of the model, employee and owner, which gives me a perspective that I think is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for kind of setting the stage there, Jason. So having experienced Velox as both an employee and a franchise owner, what was the moment when you realized, you wanted to make that transition into ownership?
Yeah, I remember this day. As I recall, we were having our monthly, quarterly town hall meeting, which I know you're aware of, but for the audience, I'll set the stage. It includes everyone in the company. It's company wide. It's about our top performers. It's about our production. It provides valuable insight, including tools and technology, industry news and updates, upcoming industry changes, plans of actions. It's resourceful. It's another connection point for the entire company. And I believe it's another key to our success. Well, anyhow, I was in the town hall, and the last topic in the meeting, that town hall that day, was a release or an announcement of some sort, and it was about the franchise opportunity. Well, I knew right then and there, I knew what I was going to do. I'd been with the company for 5 years at this point, and I knew the leadership inside and out, which I'd grown to trust and respect and believe in through experience. I knew the processes and the platforms and the tools that supported over 150 appraisers that made the firm the success it is and has become over time, just one appraisal at a time. And it was 30 days later, I signed the FDD and started the Nashville franchise February 1st, 2025.
Yeah, I remember that pretty clearly, and if I recall correctly, my phone rang, I think that day.
Immediately.
At least to show, the level of interest. And, this was, it was really late 2024, that we really started offering a franchise to appraisers or anyone else interested for that matter. So it's only been a short time for us to grow to where we are today. And Jason certainly helped get us off the ground, if you will. So, listen, Jason, what surprised you most about becoming an owner compared to what you expected out of the gate?
The speed, the simple answer, the speed in which I was able to grow my business. I can proudly say that in just 1 year, the Nashville franchise has over 4 market expert appraisers that can fulfill orders for each of our clients.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's certainly tons of runway still left in your market to keep growing. And the
Absolutely.
growth rate is different for everybody. It often depends on the effort put in. And you're certainly doing a great job, Jason. So if there's an appraiser watching today who's maybe comfortable as a staff appraiser but has occasionally thought about ownership, what would you tell them?
I would simply say that this might be the opportunity for you because you'll be doing what you've always done, but you'll now have all the systems, all the tools, and all the support that you need to actually build a viable business while working in the business. You'll now be the captain of the ship, building something of value, building something meaningful that you can have that can be perpetual income into your retirement, or if you decide to sell. You'll have something of value, and you'll have options at the end of the day. You'll have something you've built that you can take pride in that will more than support you and your family, along with providing the work-life balance that we have as appraisers. If you keep doing what I was doing, which was taking orders one at a time with no end goal, you might be missing out. You can keep doing what you're doing, but come do it alongside, building something of value. Come do it with us.
Yeah. I
All
promise
right.
we didn't pay Jason to say that, just for the record. So, all right, thanks, man. It's been just great, working with you over the years and seeing you, get to this point in your journey. So, let's move on to JP Ivy. He's an owner of several territories in the system. JP, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Chad. First, I apologize. I'm a little hoarse today, under the weather. But yeah, I'm JP Ivy. I'm based out of Southern Alabama, a little town called Dothan. As Chad said, I have several territories in Alabama, but also actually most of my workforce is focused in Florida. I have a military background. I was in the Air Force for 13 years, ended that story about 4 years ago and merged into corporate life, in which, I had a background as an entrepreneur in real estate as an investor. Velox was something that I had found along the way, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, and we're glad you did too. Thanks, JP. So for your first question, tell us, coming from the outside of the appraisal profession, what was it about the Velox model that convinced you that this was worth a business building, or worth building a business around?
Sure. That's a great question. So when I began my search, like I said, I had a background in real estate and as rentals as a property owner and a landlord. I was looking for something that was more service oriented, and I was really searching for both franchise opportunities and startup opportunities that were kind of out there on the market. When I found Velox, my first thing I noticed was that it was kind of one of a kind. Like there was no other existing franchise models for appraisals, and just because this is a government mandated service, and looking for something that has consistent demand, this really checked all the boxes for me. I think from the first time I got on a call with you, Chad, I think it was over a year ago now, last May, I think, when we talked for the first time. Everything about the model just made sense, from the demand perspective, which was what I was most keen on, was finding something that had just consistent demand, all the way to the operational constructs on the background, and the financial model just made sense. It just really felt like there was a need here in the industry.
Yeah, actually, it's hard to believe it was a year ago.
I know.
Yeah, right. So, all right. So, fast forward to today. What have you learned about the appraisal industry that surprised you the most?
Yeah, so the biggest surprise for me was really stems from my background in the military. Obviously, Air Force, any kind of military branch, you're really focused on team building and team dynamics and synergy and working together. As I kind of came on board and started interviewing and finding appraisers to build onto my team, one of the key themes that I noticed was that everybody was so segmented. They all felt alone in the world. They were all independent. They never had a lot of connections with other appraisers. And nobody ever had anybody to rely on. Every time they sign a report, they're putting their license on the line and saying that this is my valuation, but they never had anybody to lean on for support in that circumstance. And that was a huge surprise to me. Now, my fear was that wasn't something that people were necessarily looking for because they've been doing it that way for so long. But I actually experienced just the opposite as I started staffing my team, and I'm up to 6, just bringing on my 7th now, actually bringing on a trainee. They love working together. Like every day I see them in the chat rooms asking questions, asking for support. Hey, I came up with a tricky situation here. What would you do in this situation? Hey, a client's asking for this, odd request. What do you think? What would you do? And just seeing that interaction between them, which is something that they never had before, it's very satisfying to see as a leader.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you experienced that fragmentation, and I think the draw to being a part of something right out of the gate, that's interesting. So you mentioned that you're at 6 appraisers. So how important was having those established systems and support while you were growing?
Well, the systems were crucial to me specifically, because I'm coming into this, as a non-appraiser. So, I have an operations background. I can build a business, but having the support system already in place and the compliance measures in place, knowing exactly what to do was really critical to growing that fast. I hired my first back last October. And so really in a little over 8 months, I'm now to a team of 7. And that's really because of those support systems. I think Jason spoke to this a minute ago, but having the systems in place to grow quickly, to get your appraiser set up fast with the clients in the platforms, receiving orders, I couldn't have done that on my own, not that quickly, at least. So yeah, absolutely critical to have the team support there in the background, supporting not only me, but supporting my appraisers directly as they work with clients.
Yeah. So not an appraiser, but certainly an entrepreneur and an operator at heart. So, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs who may not be appraisers like yourself, but that are interested in our industry?
Sure. So it's a good question. Certainly would say, it's definitely a hurdle. There's a lot to learn. I've learned so much in the past year of doing this, but don't let it detract from the opportunity. I mean, the opportunity's there, and I believe it really makes sense for anybody. My advice would really to be focus on what you're good at, and what an entrepreneur and what what myself as an operator brings to the table is, leadership skills, operational skills, the back end of the business. Not saying that appraisers don't have that, but bringing that to the table allows the appraiser to focus on the art and science of appraising, right? That's all they have to worry about in it now. They don't have to worry about the back office functions of the business. You bring to the table something that they never had before, support that they never had. In addition, like I said before, building the team dynamics, the structures in place, and really just creating a little family, within your franchise branch, a family of support and a team that can depend on each other. And that's what you should be focusing on as a leader if you're a non-appraiser.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, franchising is about running and growing a business. In the appraisal business, being an appraiser means you can also work in the business, but it's not a requirement. And, JP has proven that. So thanks, JP. Let's move on over to Kevin Mohammed in the state of Texas. Kevin, will you please introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Mohammed, and I am located in Houston, Texas. And I am a 33-year career appraiser. So this has been my life's work. I've, worked in different other parts of real estate, doing real estate investment and, teaching appraisal coursework as well. But at the end of the day, everything that I do stems from my love and passion for being a real estate appraiser. And so I too, just like JP, am a military veteran. I served for 5 years in the U.S. Navy. And once I left the military, I was, completing, another degree, and I was thinking about, well, what's next? And so ended up working for an appraisal firm, and it was also headed up by a vet, so that worked out pretty well for me. And so the rest is history. And so it's just been an amazing career. I've got a son that's an appraiser, and I've trained many appraisers along the way myself personally. So it's definitely a career that I would recommend for anyone. And a franchise model is certainly a way for anyone to get in and hit the ground running.
Well, I certainly agree with that. My son is a trainee appraiser, almost getting ready to get certified as well. So thanks, Kevin. First question for you. Obviously, you've spent years building appraisal expertise. You mentioned educating appraisers. So what made you decide to shift your focus towards building a larger business platform with Velox?
As I've been in this industry for these years, I've noticed that there's just this fragmentation that keeps coming up amongst us because we've all seen it. And as are teaching and training appraisers, many of them just kind of go out into the wild and they're trying to figure it out, and the person that trained them oftentimes doesn't even really have a way for them to continue to function and pursue the next stages of their career. And so I've seen that void for my entire career myself. And so when I was when I ran across the Velox opportunity, it intrigued me. It really seemed exactly what I was looking for. And I saw that it fills a void that exists in our industry that's direly needing to be filled. And so for me, it was just a no-brainer. I thought it would be a great opportunity to get involved with something that's growing, that's scalable, and that's going to eventually, I think, be the blueprint for what we all want to succeed down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that for sure. So tell me, what opportunities do you see then in the future of the appraisal profession that individual appraisers may be overlooking?
I think individual appraisers are missing the ability to scale and grow a business because most of them are only thinking about their own individual niche market, which is understandable. You're a subject matter expert in that market. But what happens is the market is becoming smaller and smaller for those smaller firms. Those individual mom and pop appraisers are going to be kind of challenged to be able to continue to hit the same metrics, the same level of revenue income generation that they would probably have seen themselves hit quite easily in years past. And it's because companies like Velox and others are going to be, grabbing up that volume of work. And so, because what happens is it's a network effect. There's relationships that companies like Velox is building with their national clients, and then that, relationship structure is going to basically trickle across the entire web of the franchise owners and the corporate appraisers that we have. And so if you're a small appraiser and you're wondering like, well, who moved my cheese? If I've been in business 10 years and I'm noticing that I'm not getting the same volume, well, we took some. So I would recommend that you may want to try to get with an environment, a team, a structure that is growing and that has national scalable relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you should say it. I saw something last evening, an old phrase. If you want to take a look at your net worth, take a look at your network, right?
Yeah.
Or vice versa, however you want to say it. And it's obviously true, true through and through is what I'm trying to say. So we'll continue on this instructor's perspective. So, what skills do you think, future appraisal business owners will need the most?
Well, if you're looking to be a business owner as an appraiser, I would recommend that you focus on learning technology because that's where everything in our environment is going to be headed, and it's already there, really. We're here. UAD 3.6 is just one example, but in terms of being able to, complete reports in an efficient way, well, technology allows you for more efficiency. It creates an environment in which you can complete work at a pace and a scale that your clients are coming to expect. Unfortunately, we're not getting more time to do our appraisal assignments. It's just going to continue to be a compressed time frame. And so educating yourself on what the tools are available and how to use them correctly are going to be critical. Being able to avail yourself of all of the different, like for example, in-house training modules that Velox has. That's something that we offer for our people that are here. You can, have best practices. It's a knowledge base of information, a well of information that you can just learn at your own pace. There's different training modules and things like that. So I would say that definitely educating yourself, embracing technology, and preparing yourself for what's to come and what's happening right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and that doesn't come from one person, right? I mean, a lot of the knowledge base that we have, it's from different perspectives throughout those participants in the organization. And that really helps to round the edges of the different things that, that business owners need to understand and be able to execute on. So thanks, Kevin, for that. I appreciate the insights. We're going to move on and hear from a couple more, a couple of appraisers that own a Velox franchise as a partnership. That's David Lane and Robert Long. They're in the San Diego market. So David, let's start with you. You want to just introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. My name is Dave Lane. I've been in the real estate industry, mostly in the appraising world. And I've been in San Diego for about 25 years. Over my career, I've worked for many different companies, in many different products from non-lending to lending. And I have a pretty broad perspective on the industry. I've seen the industry grow over the years, and it's been a challenge, but it's been a reward. But I've been and seen it all, and appraising is kind of like my passion.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Dave. Now, you and Robert, which we'll hear from in a second, you guys already had a successful appraisal business. What convinced you that joining a larger brand would create opportunities, that perhaps you couldn't achieve on your own, or maybe not as fast?
Yeah, so Rob and I, we built something pretty solid here in San Diego. We had our own clients, we had our own name, we did years of relationships. We put in a lot of work, a lot of networking, but honestly, we kind of hit a ceiling. So there's only so much two guys can do on their own. And when we looked at Velox, it wasn't about replacing what we built; it was building more and adding more. It's like, how do we take what we have and add and scale and build up more? And that's what we did, and it's been it's really worked, and it's a great program that you can just add on to what you currently have and help you expand.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. That's some good insight, and I think it's just a prime example of being stronger together, right? To go with the theme of today. So let's move over to you, Rob. If you could introduce yourself, please.
There, Robert Long. Thanks for the introduction there, Chad. I also been appraising in San Diego since the early 2000s. In fact, my partner David and I took the classes in person way back when. I've been an appraiser at a kind of a fee shop at a large AMC. Then as started my own company, and now as a Velox franchise owner. I'm have an SRA designation, and I'm currently in leadership in the San Diego chapter of the Appraisal Institute.
Yeah, it's such a great add to the team, having that affiliation and those designations. I mean, that helps a lot. So first question for you: what benefits have you experienced from being part of the larger national organization from where you started?
Yeah, I think this has come up with a lot of the other owners. Main thing is being part of a team. So I was part of a large AMC for over a decade, and they did a pretty good job of team building over there. And what I keep hearing from our people that we interview in our current hires is they miss that team aspect completely. And Velox does a really good job of team communication and making you feel part of something bigger, which I think a lot of people really crave. They don't want the isolating appraiser by themselves job, and frankly, that job doesn't really exist anymore. So that was a huge thing is getting back into a team environment. This came up as well, and it's on a lot of people's minds is 3.6 is right around the corner. Basically here, all of our employees have done one or two of them, and we have a lot of resources. You're not going through this on your own at all. Velox has proprietary training for that, and all the different ideas you can bounce off of the chief appraiser, as Chad brought up. It's extremely helpful. I can't imagine trying to do this by myself. It'd be monumental to try to do that. One of Chad's last slides was systems and support. Working for a big AMC, I had no idea how we got paid or how they figured how many appraisals you did to what you earned, and it's really interesting to pull back the curtain and see how all those numbers work and get kind of reporting and data and analytics that I never had access to, and it's super interesting, and really you get to learn how to run a business. And then finally, there's access to these larger clients. As a standalone appraiser, you just can't get that. And as we network as a team in Velox, those doors open, and you can get yourself or more importantly your employees business that you couldn't knock on doors and get for them otherwise. And so being part of that Velox network, it's really key to this whole entire thing. So other than that, just things we used to grind through manually, scheduling, AMC management, all that thing. Now there's systems for it that help you and in ways that I didn't even know existed. So that frees you or your employees especially up to really just focus on being appraisers, which is what they do best.
Yeah, wow, I love that. That's a lot in your comments there, Rob. It's that support on the P&L side and the business side of things, and then it's a team atmosphere for appraisers and everybody. But, you know, we didn't talk about it too much today. We don't micromanage and dictate every single step of the process for members of the team. It's just being together that is the most important, and then learning from each other and pulling things that work for individuals in their process. And, you know, I always say what one person can do, so can another, right? And it's that approach, I think, that, you know, really harbors that team atmosphere. So thanks. So I'm going to kick it back over to Dave for the next question. So Dave, you mentioned that you guys had done a lot of networking and marketing and things. How has your perception of marketing and recruiting or growth, how's that changed since joining Velox?
Yeah, so you know, as a small company, our marketing was kind of basic. It was just local relationships, referrals, some repeat clients, word of mouth, and just a reputation in the local area. That was it. And seeing how Velox takes and does and scales, and it really opened our eyes. The growth that we had, and it really helped us. So we spent more. Our time was more efficient when we were hustling to get new clients. There's really like a system behind it, and we were able to use the system to grow and efficiently grow.
Yeah. Yeah. So by the way, a little sidebar here. You know, when we named this company, we kind of went through the brand, right? We knew that it was going to be a name that hardly anybody could pronounce, right? But hopefully nobody could forget. So you got Velox, you got Velox. That's really the real pronunciation. You've got what our CPO Paul Bradley calls Velox, and then I don't even know how you just pronounced it, David, but it's somewhere in between all of those. Right?
Yes.
All right. So a final question here from me. I'll go back to you, Rob. So if you could go back and talk to yourselves, you know, 5 years ago as independent operators, what would you tell yourselves today?
I think probably just not to wait so long. I mean, especially being in California, there are a lot of hurdles, some perceived, some real, about, you know, starting a company. You know, when we first started thinking about this, were we just going to do basic fee splits? Is that even compliant with California, with the IRS? You know, all these things we didn't really know, and I don't know how you really get instruction on for this particular industry that, you know, Chad and Velox had it all figured out. The way that we were going to go about like trying to expand was not at all the way that we ended up doing it. And so, and you know, credit to this system. So other than that, you know, I think that we kind of had in our heads that joining on to something bigger might mean giving up what we had built. You know, we went through a rebranding because we had a different company name, and we thought maybe it'd be one or the other, but it didn't turn out to be that way at all. Like I said in my last comment, you know, it ended up being big part of a much bigger and well-regarded network. We were able to keep our reputation, but then, you know, after that rebranding, you know, plugged into something way bigger. And I wish this opportunity had come across sooner, actually.
Yeah, that's outstanding. I appreciate that, and I think it's a good segue to transition to questions from the audience. So now, before we do move on to those questions, I should note or plug for these guys that they all have open positions for staff appraisers right now. So if you haven't noticed it on the screen already, I'm calling it out. So check it out on the website, or if you're interested in the employment side of things, and you're in these areas or any other area in the Velox footprint, you can go to the website and take a look at that as well. All right. So we're going to open the floor to questions. I think you can virtually raise your hand, or you can type your question into the chat or question room in the GoToMeeting space. Kendra, who's been on with us since the start from Working RE, is going to coordinate those questions as they come in, and either, you know, open up your audio or read your questions. So please feel free to direct your questions to one of the franchise owners that you just heard from, or to me, or just a question in general. We will take as much time as needed to get through all of your questions. And with that said, what questions do you have?
We don't have any questions so far.
All right. So let's give folks just a second or two here to maybe type their questions. listen, we've got on the slide here opportunities and capacity available coast to coast. So if you're wondering, hey, I wonder if there's a franchise opportunity in my territory, you can go to the website. You can go to the service areas and you'll see a map. And it has a bunch of red dots and orange dots all over the map. And those red dots represent the franchise locations. And if you click down into the state, you can see the counties that are associated with that. So anywhere where there isn't a red dot and those corresponding counties, that's an open franchise location. I already mentioned all of the open requisitions on, our website for employment opportunities. But looks like maybe we did get a question come in, Kendrick.
Yep, we have one question that says, how much is the investment for franchisee?
Great question. So also on the website, you can go to the franchise link in the menu bar, and that will take you to a franchise landing page. You can actually request a brochure that will give you some more details about it. But high level, the actual franchise fee is $20,000 unless you're an existing employee or you are a veteran, a military veteran. And then there is a $5,000 discount off of that. Now, I should say, the franchise fee, while that comes into the business as revenue, it's all spent in the training process. So, when you come on board and you sign a franchise agreement, there's about a 4 to 6 week training process that involves spending time with me, spending time with the other owners of the Velox corporate entity. There's a learning management system that has modules that transfer information in that way. They're standing up your business and doing all of the things it takes to get to your doors opening. There's a PR firm that's involved that takes your story, works on press releases, and gets your name out into the community as a new Velox franchise owner. All of those sort of things, that really comes out of the initial fee to Velox, to what's really franchise Velox Valuations. The fee to the firm in terms of our revenue as a business is 10% of the top line revenue. So we take 10% of the fee, and that's the way that we earn a return on our development of these systems and franchise offering.
All right, and then the next question is, as you expand your business, how do you quality control, making sure the appraiser is up to the standard as a potential future representation of your organization?
Yeah, so like we said, we believe that, the quality starts with the hiring decision. So every employee in the organization that joins Velox goes through at least 2 interviews. They go through just an introductory interview with your typical interview questions. Listen, is this individual a fit for the organization? Are they going to be, a good staff appraiser? And is that what they're looking for? But then they go through a technical interview, and that happens with normally our chief appraiser, but a certified appraiser within the organization. And they literally go through and they spend normally about 90 minutes just talking about technical components of appraising. We want to make sure that this appraiser understands how to do an appraisal, how to support an adjustment, how to do regression analysis, and how to write an appraisal report that meets the standards and demands of customers that we service, both in the lending space and otherwise. We provide them with guidance on using various tools to do a quality control check of that appraisal report, whether that's baked into the software report writing package itself, or use of other things like AI and other review tools. We don't interject ourselves as an operation into the quality control process with the appraiser. So like I said, our appraisers, they work with our customers end to end. The order goes directly to them. They make the acceptance or rejection decision. They communicate with the customer throughout the transaction. They write the appraisal report. We support them if they need technical support on that, or any one of their peers, as we've talked about today, and they deliver that appraisal report. Now, through that model, we have received from our customers feedback, because many of our customers, we hop on a call with them on a monthly basis and we go through performance metrics as an organization. And we are number 1 or number 2 on their scorecards every single month in quality as it relates to how they measure that, whether it's revision requests or ROVs or any of that sort of thing. So hopefully that answers the question.
All right. And then the next question is there a stringent interview process or a skill test, etc.?
Yeah, and I just sort of touched on that one. So we're making an employment decision here. You know, I had an HR leader in another organization once that told me, she said, making the employment decision is like getting married. You know, this is a long-term committed decision point in any organization. So when we make an employment decision, we go through our due diligence, and that again includes 2 minimum interviews. One is, can we provide what you're looking for, and vice versa in terms of the employment relationship? And number 2 is, are you technically skilled at the level that our customers demand?
All right. And then the next question is, how is the revenue in comparison to your small or otherwise IFA shops?
Well, that's in our space, that's a very general question that has a lot of specifics around it. So what we've always said in the past is we deliver, one product 1,000 different ways, right? Because each customer wants it a little bit different, and each customer's dynamic is a little bit different. So you may provide exactly the same service in the same market for a wide range of fees, depending on who your customer is. And depending on the relationship with that customer. Does that customer, send you 1 or 2 orders, on a monthly basis, or do they send you 500 orders across your footprint on a monthly basis? All of those types of things can factor into what the average fee is for those appraisers. So I'll answer it in this way. So if you're interested in the franchise side of things, if you inquire about that opportunity, we will send you what's called a franchise disclosure document. And in that document, it will show you that bell curve of the revenue per unit, the number of units on a periodic basis. These are going to be on a monthly basis, and those sorts of metrics inside of that. It's actually a benefit, I think, of the franchise model, in that a lot of appraisers can get very myopic on appraisal fees and not see the bigger opportunity when you're working on a relationship and developing a relationship with a potential customer. Yeah, some of them are going to be on the high end and they're great, high paying customers. Some are going to be on the left side of that bell curve. But if you can provide services and entertain across that spectrum, somewhere in the middle, you're going to get to an average, and that's going to find an equilibrium of the maximum amount of volume that you can actually attract and from the marketplace in terms of market allocation, and the number of appraisers that you can support.
All right. And then the next question is, what are the biggest challenges when you started? And this is for all the speakers.
You know what? I guess let's open it up. Let me quarterback that over to you, Jason.
Biggest challenge for me was kind of my own self getting in my own way. So we have systems and processes in place that bells are ringing and going off saying, hey, Jason, you might want to consider, hiring a new employee. There's missed opportunity in your market. Hey, Jason, there's missed opportunity in your market. And I would have a little nudge from Paul Bradley. He's another owner on the corporate side. And, he would call me and say, hey, Jason, looks like there's opportunity in your market. Let's look at that. And we have an opportunity map, and little black dots pop up and show me where I've missed opportunities. And that went on for a couple of months. And Paul didn't make me do anything, didn't push me down the hill, nothing. He just simply called me next month and the following month. And he just kept saying, hey, Jason, you might want to really consider opening up a rec and going through the hire process. You're missing opportunities in your market. And I was at a point to where, man, I'd started this thing in February. I got my first employee, and maybe gotten my second employee at that time. And I was like, hey, let me breathe, let me whatever, and let this thing organically happen. And without a strong arm in me or anything, that's again the support that I'm trying to talk about today. Nobody's making me do anything. Nobody's micromanaging me. But hey, Jason, he's telling me if you would like to make some more money and increase your revenue, you might want to think about hiring somebody. So the biggest challenge for me was the speed of that this thing was going and my comfortability of stepping into the traffic and letting things happen organically. And that's why, I was able to hire 4 people in less than a year. JP at 6 or 7, and the other guys the same. So that was my biggest challenge. And again, the support on the back end came in and helped me overcome that fear, show me where it can happen, lay a roadmap, put some bumpers in line for me, and send me down the road. And every time I needed something, every time I, had a question, they're always there to help me. So I did not get to where I am by myself, by no means. So my biggest challenge was me.
Yeah. We're gonna, it's a great thing we have this recorded right now, Jason, because we have that answer in your file now. And what I mean by that it's resistance sometimes to using the tools that are available to you. Sometimes they're new tools, and there's a little bit of anxiety or apprehension about picking them up and using them. My dad was a service mechanic and owned a service business for most of his career, and he always said any job becomes easy if you have the right tool. You'd sit over there and see someone struggling and struggling and struggling, and he'd walk over with the right tool and just and do something like it was effortless. And that's always stuck with me, and it's so true. Let's keep that question going. Some of the biggest challenges. Kevin, why don't you? Let's hear from you. I can get the words out of my mouth.
So yeah, I would say my biggest challenge would have been, or would be, attracting the quality of candidates that Velox stands for, and that we're looking to have aboard on the team. Because everyone has their own way of doing things. Everyone may have their own understanding of best practices, but just the vetting process and kind of filtering out the candidates and getting to people that really understand and get it the way that we want to go about doing business. So and then being able to explain to those candidates what the value proposition of working as a W-2 staff appraiser for Velox is all about. Because sometimes appraisers tend to be very focused on just doing it the way that they've done it, and they may not see what benefit they could really obtain from coming aboard and working with us. And so that's kind of an educational process that we have to do as franchise owners to explain that to them, because it's just not naturally the way our brains are designed as appraisers. But once they've kind of learn and understand it, they find that it's much better for them than being out there on their own, struggling, trying to make it work and make it make sense.
Yeah, value isn't appreciated until it's communicated, right, effectively. All right, I think maybe there's more questions, Kendra.
Yep. Our next question is, I am primarily a VA appraiser, but training a couple of my trainees to help us branch more into the AMC market. How would this work with my current VA business? Can I continue doing VA work?
Yes, absolutely. You can continue to do VA work. We have 2 appraisers that are employees of franchisees that are doing VA work today, and certainly a franchise owner as well that's doing VA work could continue to do that. Now, it should be noted that as I said earlier in the call, when you come in to Velox, you're exclusive to Velox. So all of that would run through the Velox business, your Velox business entity as a franchise owner, but the work can continue just the same. And then you have the systems and support to bring on, those trainees. We have trainee programs with a couple of different ways to support that relationship. And of course, obviously the employment relationship is core to the team, or rather core to the system.
All right. And then the next question is, speaking of tech, do all franchises use the same software, support adjustments, tracking, etc.?
Great question. We've said it a couple of times today. We don't mandate process, right? We don't say you have to use this report writing software package that we built, or that you have to use this particular one that's out there on a shelf, from the marketplace, or you have to schedule in this way, or we're going to schedule for you, or any of those things. You got to use a disto laser, or you got to use scan to sketch, or you got to use Kubicasa or Data Master, or all those tools, right? We don't say that. What we do is we track performance, and we track production, and we track success, and we aggregate that tracking, and we present that to the team, and we curate all of those tools, and we literally flow chart them from end to end and say, we consider this best practice. If you want to have some of the high-end results that other team members are having, we can put you in contact with them to collaborate. You can review these best practices, and you can take what works for you. We can show you the way, but we don't mandate it. So our system is all about, as an employee, there is a minimum production, and it is very low. The minimum production that you have to do on a monthly basis is intentionally set low. That's to maintain the employment relationship over time. And then there is a bonus structure on top of that, as well as all of the benefits. Again, you can see these things on the website if you go to the careers page. But the point that I'm making is that what we care about is that you meet your production requirements, that you communicate professionally and meaningfully with our customers and your customers. They're our customers throughout the transaction, and you deliver a quality appraisal report. Those are the three things. If you want to use Cotality, use it. If you want to use Avery, use it. If you want to use Bradford, use it. It doesn't matter. As long as you're delivering a quality report at the required production levels and being a professional, that's what matters to our customers. They don't care which software package that you're using, and frankly, we don't either. And I'll tell you, the best practices is an evolving thing, right? Most of our appraisers have used Total because for so long they've had the best mobile app out there, and the ability to transfer information and reduce, keystrokes has been, in our experience, the best. That might be changing with 3.6. I'm not going to say one is better than the other on this call, or talk about, negatively about any software package on this call, certainly. But I think there's opportunity for those best practices, particularly now when we have a 3.6 change, a fundamental change in the space. I think there's opportunity for those best practices to change, and we'll change them if we believe in them. So hopefully that answers the question.
I'll piggyback a little more on that, because Robert actually expanded that question a couple minutes later, and he was also asking more specifically on the franchise end. Is there standardized systems and tools for the franchise owners to use? And so my answer to that, Robert, is yes. So the structure is in place. There are standardized systems. All the owners are using QuickBooks. Where there is flexibility is things like bookkeeping, right? There are a few vendors that are recommended. Some of us do the bookkeeping ourselves as opposed to using a bookkeeping service, stuff like that. So there's flexibility while there is the structure in place. And, there are some mandated tools for all franchise owners to use just for the standardization of bookkeeping and stuff like that. And then as well as the back end tracking software. You also asked about collections. Yes, collections are also centralized at the corporate level. So you don't have to worry about any of that as a franchisee. It's just more or less the accounting for your own business. There's also like standardized training systems. There's a full LMS training. And in addition to all of those tools, we even have dedicated support from a person. Chrissy is our operations leader on the franchise end that kind of helps each franchise owner along with that process, ensuring everybody's on the same page and using the tools correctly.
Excellent.
All right. And then the next question is, with an established satellite office, how easy is it for assignment transfer? Does it get challenging for the client?
Yeah, so it's not challenging for the customers. Sometimes it's it's a little challenging for us, but we don't assign orders. So like I said, we don't take all of the orders from the customers and then we decide which franchise location gets it, or which corporate location gets it, or which appraiser gets it. our customers choose those appraisers directly. Now they've come to know all of the members on our team as Velox appraisers, right? That is that brand identity. When we bring on a new appraiser and we sign them up with all of our customers, that might be Chad Barker, the appraiser. But when those operating teams and when those customers see, oh, this is a Velox Valuations appraiser, then they understand that that appraiser was vetted, how that appraiser is managed, all the things we've talked about on today's call. So it's the customer that decides, oh, I have an order, it's in Marion County, Indiana, I'm going to send it to Chad, or I'm going to send it to Stephen French, or I'm going to send it to Joseph Darling. These are all appraiser names in the Indianapolis area. They decide which one it goes to. Now, where we have some collaboration with our customers in the assignment process would be if one appraiser in the market is getting more than they can handle, and another appraiser, Velox appraiser, is getting orders, they'd like to have more orders, if you will. So sometimes that appraiser that's getting selected more often than their Velox peer, they may go back to the customer and say, I don't have capacity in my pipeline right now to take this order, but Jason Covington does. If you want to, go ahead and assign that over. And some customers have no problems doing that. Other customers, that just doesn't fit well in their operating model. And we try to get that balance achieved just through higher level conversations. We track all of that information, so we'll feed that back to the customer at a high level and say, hey, listen, in this market, it's a little lopsided. If you want us to take on more of your work, we can do that. You just need to get this other appraiser engaged more than you are today, that kind of thing. I think that was the genesis of your question. I hope I answered it.
All right. And then the next question is, do you finance the franchise fees?
Great question. We do offer some financing up to $7,500. So the franchise fee for now anyways is going to be $20,000 or $15,000 if you qualify for the discount. Either way, the financing is up to $7,500. It is short-term financing, just over a 12-month period.
All right, it looks like those might be all of our questions for now.
All right. Well, that was great. It was great questions, and hopefully we've got those answered. I think if there are no more questions, just in the interest of time, I did want to maybe take just a little bit more time and close today with a quick story. We started with a story. Let's finish with a story. I promise this one's shorter. So when we first started Franchise Velox Valuations, I said that we needed to make a business model that could flip certain things on their head in our space. I wanted to create a franchise system that could be purchased and help appraisers become successful and help non-appraisers that were interested in everything in between. So think about this for a second. What about trainees? I said, what if a trainee buys a franchise, starts to grow that business, and then simply hires their supervisor, right? Instead of the trainee out there scouring for, the community for a willing supervisor, how about they simply offer employment because they've grown something that has value to the certified appraisers in their market? For me, that was a notion that has really stuck with me, and it's been a driver. And I'm happy to report that we have 2 trainees in North Carolina that have purchased a Velox franchise and are on the road to building their business in Durham, North Carolina, in that area. And they will soon have open positions for certified appraisers in general. Now, they may hire a certified appraiser that doesn't want to be a supervisor, and they'll just keep searching until they find a supervisor that wants to mentor a trainee and earn more money in the process as an employee of the organization. And they also have a peer franchise owner in the adjacent Raleigh, North Carolina area. So those 2 sets of owners and territories and different backgrounds, they're going to be working together. Guys, I really believe that we are stronger together. That's why we named this webinar like we did. And I hope it's been helpful. Maybe it's, raised a few questions. And, with that said, I think I just want to thank everybody for their time and attention today. And I want to wish everybody the greatest success in all of their endeavors. If you have anything to follow up with, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly or through our website or any other channel. And with that said, we'll go ahead and end the webinar. Thanks, everyone.